All right, thanks for the introduction. I hope everyone is able to see my screen.
Yes, sir.
All right. So thanks a lot for the introduction, and let's get started. So today, the topic that I have is keeping secure in a transforming world, right? So we've seen that perimeter-based defenses has been a traditional IT security model, like castle and fortresses, with the idea of keeping the bad guy, the intruders outside, while relatively allowing everyone inside to be trusted to roam freely. Now, this model has been under siege for many years, and Zero Trust presents a unique approach to rethinking and reinforcing organizational defenses, right? And as introduced, I lead the pre-sales team for IBM Security across Asia Pacific, helping organizations build trust with their users through sound security solutions, protecting data, preventing fraud, securing devices, and establishing trusted identity as part of IBM's digital trust portfolio. And in the session today, I'm going to talk about the current challenges due to the fast changing landscape, introduce what Zero Trust is in essence, talk about a governance framework for Zero Trust adoption, and then showcase how IBM security technology and services can come together to help you with your Zero Trust journey. So let's get started. All right. So the way enterprises operate today, and especially during COVID, has drastically changed, right? Traditionally, we had security where we would look at security in the concept of good and bad, allowed list and denied list. So in essence, we had created a perimeter, and anything that was inside the perimeter was considered to be good, and anything that was outside the perimeter was considered to be bad, right? So the security was perimeter centric and more or less binary in nature. But we have seen, based on what the events of 2020, perimeter is going away fast. And with the adoption of cloud, mobile ecosystem, third parties coming in, organizations are required or forced to think about a lot of gray, right? So the gray doesn't fit into the normal traditional security model which organizations have. Now, traditionally, when you look at organizations, inside the perimeter, users were coming in from corporate issued devices, right? So corporate issued devices were, in a way, another good. And users which were inside using those trusted devices were considered to be a good, and users outside the trusted zone were generally considered to be bad. But things have drastically changed, right? With the growing bring your own device adoption, as well as many cases, users are using multiple devices to come into the environment, right? There is obviously a need for organizations to rethink how they're enforcing the security practices. Uh, Moving forward, if you look at the remote workforce, right? Traditionally, we had a few users that were coming in remotely, but this is drastically accelerated. And now you just have, you not just have the normal users that are coming in remotely, but you also have, let's say, many cases, privileged users who are accessing a lot of critical systems in your environment. You may have senior management that may be coming in remotely. So how do you really know who the real user is, right? So uh, in a traditional office sense, users would come into the office, use a badge to enter the building or enter the premises, and then when they go onto the network, there's some kind of a network authentication mechanism in place, right? But with everyone being remote, the only way to identify the user is based on the credentials that they're providing, and essentially there's a massive attack surface that is now exposed, right? So users are being and organizations are going through a lot of phishing attacks on their side. Data, which is a very critical asset, is no longer inside the network, right? As in data is distributed, customers are using SaaS applications, hosting applications on the cloud, right? Or accessing applications from different devices, including mobile. So data, which is an extremely critical asset, is no longer inside the network. It's highly distributed. And lastly, when the users were inside the perimeter, just having an ID password-based authentication was considered to be okay for us to be able to identify those users. But now when the users are outside, we do not know who the users are, and just relying on an ID password-based authentication or a password-based authentication mechanisms is just not good enough, right? So this traditional security approach of trusting the users and only verifying when they need certain access is not good enough, right? You cannot trust users to be inside the network and have vast or broad access to all your applications. So the traditional security approach was typically threat centric, and it was based on binary good and bad. But what is really needed is more gray and for us to be more dynamic. And this is essentially compelling organizations to look at security in a different manner. Now, if we look at organizations have going digital transformation at a massive pace, right, where they are compelled to offer more and more services online, right? And what that essentially means is that they are exposing themselves to a much wider attack surface. So their users who are coming and accessing these applications are everywhere. The endpoints of the devices from which they are coming in are also everywhere. The applications which are being accessed, they can be on-prem, they can be on the cloud, they can be as a consumer as service. So applications are everywhere. Data is distributed everywhere. It can be on the applications, it can be on the cloud, it can be on the user's device. And essentially the infrastructure is highly distributed, right? So this is the current situation. And if you look at this current situation, then having the traditional view of anything inside my premise is secure is not good enough, right? So this complexity is compelling organizations to turn to a new security paradigm. And this is where zero trust is becoming an important paradigm which many CISOs are looking at in today's organizations, right? Now, zero trust on its own is not a new concept. Forrester initially coined the term almost 20 years back, and they have been a big proponent of the zero trust philosophy. We had Gartner, who has come up with their own spin around it called CARTA, Continuous Adaptive Risk and Trust Assessment. Google, with their Beyond Cloud, was one of their initial, I would say, implementations following the zero trust principles in their environment, where essentially they allowed anyone in the organization to access applications on their network without essentially using a VPN, right? NIST in the last couple of years has done tremendous work where they have highlighted a key framework around zero trust, I highlighted key principles around it, as well as brought out some best practices that organizations can look at where they start adopting zero trust. So what IBM has done is there's been tremendous buzz around zero trust. Many vendors are talking about it, but what you need to understand is zero trust is not a product. It's a paradigm of doing security differently. Customers are free to use their existing products. In some cases, they may need to add more, but in essence, it's essentially a cultural change within the organization. Right now, what IBM has done is IBM has looked at all these frameworks, and we have distilled, I would say, 4 key principles that we think conveys the principles of zero trust. The first is never trust, always verify. So this is in contrast to the earlier approach, which I said trust but verify, right? So never trust, always verify means that irrespective of where the user is coming from, which location, which network, which device, we need to always explicitly verify the user and only then allow the user explicit access based on the user being able to prove his or her identity. Second is eliminating perimeter-based controls, right? So the essence here is that organizations should think that their applications and services are available on the internet. There's no perimeter, and then build security controls based on this concept of their applications and services being exposed to the wild west, right? So essentially, organizations are building security, assuming that their applications and services can be accessed by anyone, so that they're able to effectively control access whenever any exposure happens in the organization. The third is implementing least privilege. Now, it's a principle which has been around for a very long time. Essence is the access has to be more dynamic in nature. You need to do continuous assessment, and then only then access is granted. So ensure users have followed the principle of least privilege from access granting perspective. And the last principle here is assume breach, right? In essence, organizations are exposed to a vast attack surface. There's no demarcation between the inside and the outside. So the organizations have to respond to threats and essentially have orchestration and automation in place, so they're able to respond quickly and effectively to any threats that may come up within the organization. Now, what IBM has done is we have looked at zero trust and we have distilled that into, I would say, for our customers so that they can understand zero trust in a much more simpler way. And essentially, what we say is enabling the right user under the right conditions to have the right access to the right data, right? So we have simplified what zero trust means for organizations by looking at the right user, the right condition, right access, and right data. And what this essentially means is that when you organization looking at zero trust, they need to look at three key pillars. The first is data. In essence, your data, you need to be able to determine where your data resides. This could be in your databases, in unstructured formats. It could be on the cloud. It could be on user devices. So being able to identify where the data resides and being able to classify that data in terms of the sensitivity around it. Once you've identified the data and classified it, being able to bring in protection capabilities around that data by defining encryption as well as access policies, being able to monitor access around in terms of who's accessing the data at any point in time, being able to respond to threats in real time. So all those controls are needed around data security. The next key area is around identity, right? So critical assets or data that you have within the organization is essentially accessed by users or by identity, right? So being able to perform something called as continuous access control, right? So traditionally the authentication was you authenticate the user once and then you allow the user access to the application. But what is needed is for us to be able to continuously assess the user access and be able to identify what the user is doing in its user journey. And whenever the context of the user changes, being able to prompt the user for additional factors of authentication. Now, what is also needed is for data and identity layer to provide additional context to the threat management layer so that organizations are able to better orchestrate and automate their responses. And they also have an, I would say, identity information, identity context added as part of their SOC in their environment. Now, executing on the vision and promise of zero trust should not be done in silos, right? So one of the things which we have clearly highlighted is context is an absolute key within zero trust. But doing point-to-point integrations, which organizations currently doing, is not enough. What is essentially needed is for organization to be able to ingest context across the entire spectrum of security investments that they have, right? And then being able to sort of protect themselves against today's threats. So what IBM has done is IBM is advising its customers to take a business-first approach to security, right? And we've highlighted, I would say, three key steps that organizations can follow in the zero trust adoption. So first is insights. Essentially, get insights from the user, from the device, from the network, from the location, and use that insights to determine the context in which the user is trying to access a system or an application, and then perform enforcement, where we are using, I would say, some of the insights that we have got in looking at the context in which the user is making and accessing a particular application, and then performing an enforcement in terms of allowing the user to access that system, allowing the user to access that system after additional authentication controls are enforced, or in some cases, blocking access to the user, right, to get to that particular system based on a high risk being identified. And the last is detection and response. In essence, the idea here is how do we, once a risk is identified, right, once a threat is identified, how do we automate the response? How do we define the playbooks so that organizations are better prepared to handle any incidences of any kinds of breaches happening within the organization? IBM has further gone ahead, and regardless of how or where you start, we can help, I would say, organizations apply zero trust principles. And what we have done is we've identified four key top priorities areas based on our discussion with our customers, and where customers are looking at bringing in or onboarding or moving forward on their zero trust journey. So the first is how do customers deliver trusted customer experiences by ensuring that the customer's privacy is maintained. In a sense, ensuring that the user's consent is taken into account and user is in full control of their privacy data, right? In terms of how the data is being used and shared within the organization. The second key, I would say, business priority that we see is around transformation of business with hybrid cloud. And in essence, how do we help organizations protect the hybrid cloud by managing and controlling all accesses, monitoring activities that are happening on the cloud, as well as monitoring configurations and securing any cloud native workloads that organizations are deploying. The third is how do we help organizations secure the growing remote workforce. Now, the days of the traditional office settings are, I would say, long gone. Everyone is facing at the stark reality that majority of the users are continuing to be remote. So users are going to use their own devices, their unmanaged devices, and come into the environment, right? VPN is no longer a technology which can sort of provide the right level of security when users are outside the organization and you have privileged users and business users coming in. So how do we secure the remote workforce? And the last is reducing the risk of insider threats, right? In a sense, how do we ensure the availability of critical assets, account jewels within the organization to ensure that we are giving least privileged access to those users, and we are able to ensure we are able to monitor the behavior and protect any untoward activities from happening within the organization. So to bring this zero trust paradigm within the organization, we think that there are three key areas that the organization should look at. But essentially, first is the trust should be explicitly created, right? So being able to identify who the user is, what the user is using to access that service, what's the state of the user, right, and what authorization the user has. Then bringing in the policy enforcement layers around identity, data, network, and device, and then essentially translating that to technical controls. These could be around adaptive access. These could be around micro-segmentations, hardening, I would say, enforcing encryption. So bringing in all these technical controls that will help organizations, I would say, adopt zero trust for one of the priority use cases that they identified in the organization, right? And needless to say, having visibility and monitoring across these three layers, as well as bringing in automation from an orchestration perspective. So in case anything untoward happens, organizations are better able to adapt and protect themselves in the organization. Now we're going to pivot and look at what IBM Security and how IBM Security can help organizations adopt a zero trust paradigm in their environment. And we're going to look at a fictitious organization and look at the organization's defenses from the lens of a CISO. Right, so we have a CISO at Bain & Knox. He is managing an organization of let's say 50,000 users, and CISO has closely worked with IBM and has implemented, I would say, sound security controls using a zero trust paradigm within the organization. Right, so he is on the leading edge of technology adoption, and is constantly striving to be ahead and stay ahead of the curve. Right, so we're going to look at two key use cases that we have already introduced. So the first use case that we're going to dive deeper into is how do we reduce the risk of insider threats? Now, insider threats is a very major concern for organizations because insiders have the deepest access to your most critical assets and data within your organization. So being able to have this, bring in zero trust for reducing insider threats is, I think, is a win-win proposition for organizations. So let's go through a journey in terms of how an organization can protect themselves against insider threats by breaking zero trust paradigm using IBM security solutions. To start with, we will start with a user. In this case, we have Darius. He's a remote employee at Bain & Knox, and Darius is working at home from his company-issued laptop and his personal mobile device. And based on his past history, Darius has earned a high degree of high level of trust from Bain & Knox. This trust affords Darius certain levels of freedom as he accesses different applications and resources throughout his day. Next, we have Abby. She's a security analyst at Bain & Knox. And lastly, we'll have a malicious attacker who has just sent Darius a text message in the hopes of executing a mobile phishing campaign. Now, Darius is very concerned about COVID-19 and has been wondering how to get on to the vaccination list. So when he suddenly gets a text message with an offer to join a list for a COVID-19 vaccine, immediately he opens on the message. Let's open the message. And he decides to visit the link in the message. Now, despite a warning generated from the mobile device management software on his phone that this might be a malicious site, he goes ahead and downloads the application anyway, and then he opens a file to install it. Now, Darius is allowed to install and download and install the application because historically he's been a trusted employee for Bain & Knox. Now, when Darius doesn't know is that the text was a phishing attack and the application he just downloaded is a keystroke logger. So according to the corporate BYOD policy, Darius has downloaded MAS360 on his managed device. MAS360 is a UEM solution. So when he received this suspicious text and installed an unknown and downloaded app, MAS360 policies were triggered. He receives a notification from MAS360. On clicking the notification, Darius is taken to the MAS360 app. Here, Darius is able to see the overall security risk on the device based on his behavior. He would also see the application that is being detected as malware. Now, ignoring the phishing attack warning and downloading a malicious application has triggered a series of zero trust architecture policies, which will ultimately put Darius's device in quarantine. You can see the message on the device has marked the device as device out of compliance. Now, now we're going to pivot and see what security analyst Abby is observing as the zero trust architecture dynamically detects and remediates a phishing attack. Now, Bain & Knox have deployed IBM QRadar as their SIEM, which captures all non-compliant events from their MDM, MAS360 on Darius BYOD approved phone. So here, Abby can see the two offenses that were already generated by Darius's action in QRadar. Notice the offense type and the offense source. And specifically for case number 5697, as we click into this offense, we now see more details from this event, including the evidence that this is indeed a MAS device ID offense from an Android that we know to be Darius. On the right-hand side, we can also look at the magnitude of the offense. Now, while Darius actions were taking place, the QRadar SIEM subsequently triggered a device quarantine offense, which in turn launches an orchestration playbook to be handled by the Zero Trust Architecture SOAR component, or Security Operations and Automation and Response. So Abby now goes to her SOAR or Cloud Pak for Security. Now in Cloud Pak for Security, Abby can see the alert coming in from QRadar with Darius's email address as the value. Now, Abby checks out the orchestration playbook attached to this case within Cloud Pak for Security. The policy playbook manages the dynamic remediation of the detected quarantine offense and performs several actions. The first action is to update Darius's user account rating, which is managed by Bain & Knox, the user behavior analytics component of QRadar, which Abby can still see in the Cloud Pak for Security platform as shown here. Secondly, the orchestration playbook will block any further access by Darius bring your own device phone using IBM Verify. This action amplifies the mantra, never trust, always verify. As you can see the words plainly right here, this playbook is used to make the user's device inactive using Verify. Now, speaking of Verify, IBM Security Verify, let's take a look at what Abby sees within Verify immediately after the failed login attempt by Darius from his mobile device. The user's profile is still kept active. And we can see that on Verify, there's a conditional access policy that has been defined, which essentially says that if a user is coming from a non-compliant device, we should deny access to that user. So let's switch back to Darius's perspective one last time. Now the impact of all these secure zero trust architecture events becomes evident when Darius attempts to sign into the cloud workspace fails due to access denied from a quarantine mobile device. So let's see this in action. The user tries to log into his cloud workspace. He's using IBM Security Verify for login. He provides his credentials, but his access is denied. Now, this is an automated response which is targeting the insider threat that prevents Darius from logging in due to the high risk score on the device. Note here that the account is still not locked and he is still able to access these services from other, I would say, compliant devices. Only this device is disabled for access to corporate resources, right? The application that the user installed on the device was essentially a keystroke logger, and his credentials were captured and was sent to the attacker remotely. So now when the attacker has access to those credentials, he's trying to do credential stuffing. And so we're going to look at from an attacker perspective, when the attacker comes in and tries to use the same credentials that Darius has used and tries to come into the environment, the IBM Security Verify solution is able to block that access. Now, there is, I would say, adaptive access control sitting behind IBM Security Verify, which is able to differentiate between a user typing his own credentials and somebody else who's got access to those credentials and typing the credentials on user's behalf. In essence, Bay Knox protection policies have proactively blocked the attacker from using the stolen credential and disabled Darius's access from his out-of-compliant device. And additionally, the protection policies prevent other users from even visiting the original malicious website in this phishing scheme in the future. Now, so we have seen a very comprehensive demo where we saw IBM Security Verify, IBM Mass 360, QRadar and CloudPack for security solutions coming together to prevent the reduce the risk of insider threat. Now we're going to look at a second scenario where we will see how we can preserve the customer privacy. Now, privacy is a key concern which many times prevents organizations from doing business in certain regions due to the high, I would say, risk of privacy violations. But organizations that are able to do privacy well do definitely see a huge uptake in terms of customer trust as well as business growth. So for this demo, I'm going to show you an end-to-end data privacy demonstration where we'll see the power of IBM Security Portfolio and how our unified capability for data privacy can help organizations strengthen data privacy protection and build customer trust. Let's get started. So we have Joe, who's a privileged user. And when leaving the company, he copies confidential documents, in this case, credit card data, and then sends this information to his personal email. Now, when this company has adopted a zero trust approach, which means they have context-based security that helps them to isolate threats and limit the blast radius of data breach incidents. They're using IBM CloudPack for security platform, which allows a unified view with data identity threat context. So Greg, who's a security analyst, is able to, so Greg, who's a security analyst, will see an alert of what Joe did. And when Greg sees that customer credit card data was lost, he opens a ticket to start the privacy breach response. A privacy case is then opened and assigned to the privacy analyst, Abby, and she will have all the tools she needs to manage the response. So let's get started into the demo. So what you're looking at right now is the landing page and dashboard. Greg, our security analyst, is looking at the dashboard. So there's a high risk here, 20% in red for one of the data sources. It needs more investigation. So he now will drill into this high risk area and he sees that the financial database is the highest risk asset. And he will investigate and figure out what is going on with that asset. And the way he does that by drilling into the asset. So Greg can now see that there are about 870 anomalies, and he needs to figure out what or who is causing this by easily pivoting over to the user risk area. We see that Joe here is causing those 846 of those anomalies, and it needs to be investigated. Now, looking at what Joe's been doing, we can see that he's been doing a lot of data extraction. And in fact, this one right here has a high confidence level of being suspicious activity. Now, what Greg is going to do is he's going to drill a little bit more in here and look at the data extraction that's going on. Now, on any given day, Joe normally does 54K of transactions, but all of a sudden he's doing 4 times more. And by using a unified platform, Greg is immediately alerted that there's a problem. Now, IBM security users like Greg can potentially increase his ability to accurately detect threats by 43%. Now, Greg needs to figure out what exactly Joe's doing, and by pushing a button, he goes to the anomalies. Anomalies report. Now he can now see that the Joe is doing some credit card select on the database, and he believes that Joe has stolen some credit card data. So what Greg needs to do is to act on what's happening and act quickly. So you see how easy it is for Greg to immediately lock down Joe's access to stop further damage from occurring and to limit the impact and severity of the incident with a click of a button. Now, Greg was able to dynamically adapt access control based on the newly discovered threat insights. What Greg will now do is he will create a ticket in the case management system. Now, all the information from the anomalous behavior that we have seen is automatically pre-populated, and Greg is assigned as the owner. You can also see here that the activity information has been updated so that if anyone else is looking into this, they can see that a case and a ticket has been created. So what Greg has done is Greg has realized there is a problem and a case has been created for the team to start to take action to mitigate the breach. So we're going to go over to the breach tab. Now, this is the privacy section of the case manager, which provides support for over 180 privacy incident reporting regulations worldwide and helps team navigate the complex regulatory environment notification requirements with a guided process. As he looks at the data, he determines that personal information was involved. So he's now going to flag this case to indicate such. So he's going to edit and specify that there was personal information that was leaked as part of this incident. Now, the minute he does this and saves it, what data was lost, first name, last name of our customers, and their credit card information is automatically pre-populated as Greg digs into this incident further. Now, he learns a couple of more things. He realizes that some of the data was lost in certain specific geographies. The Cloud Pak for Security platform supports any country or geography in the world. In our example today, Greg lost some information in Austria and Europe, and also in California and US. So Greg will fill this, how much data was lost in each of those geographies and select the regulators involved. And by the click of a button, he saves the information. And now the privacy specific tasks have been automatically added and integrated into the overall incident response playbook, making it easy to work together with privacy and legal teams to address the regulatory requirements. Greg will log off because his job here is done. He identifies the scope of the breach, and now he's pivoting. Now we'll pivot over to Abby, who's a privacy analyst. Now Abby is being notified by email that there's been a privacy breach. She's a privacy analyst, and she's going to look at her task list that was laid out for her. These are all the tasks that Abby needs to do to notify the correct people about the breach. Here's the one from Austria, and we see that the due date is coming up. So again, we keep Abby abreast of what's happening in a timely fashion. She now drills into the task she was assigned. Now, Abby can read about what she needs to do in Australia to notify the supervisory authority, what form she needs to fill out. Each of the tasks detail the steps she should take to address the reporting requirements. And IBM has an internal team of legal and privacy professionals dedicated to managing the global knowledge base so that you will have an easy access to the most up-to-date laws. And by automating manual efforts and guiding analysts to efficiently address incidents, you could potentially save more than 1 hour of analyst time for each security incident. Now, all the information about this case is gathered in one single system of record, making it easier to demonstrate compliance with regulators such as GDPR and CCPA. Extensive dashboards and reporting are available. This way, management or legal is always kept up to date. You can figure out what tasks were associated with the incident, what was the timeline of how long it took to do each step. You can read about the case. You can figure out who was assigned to work on it. You can see that what information was lost and how many records were lost. So these reports are, I would say, invaluable to the team as they conduct post-incident reviews and create the reporting package for regulators, right? So in essence, even with optimized security practices in place, breaches are inevitable. But by having unified integrated security tools in place, you'll be positioned to protect your most valuable assets and proactively manage threats. You'll break down the silos for bringing together your stakeholders in a coordinated manner and utilize automated workflows to accelerate your response, which helps to ensure regulatory timelines are met and your customers are able to take appropriate steps to protect themselves. So this is the power of applying a zero trust approach. So what we have seen is, we've seen two use cases which organizations can take as part of the business first approach to adopting zero trust. And what we have seen is behind the scenes, IBM Security portfolio has come together to help address and help customers on their journey towards zero trust. So if you, here you can see the IBM Security overall portfolio, where we have a capability to help customers align, align the security strategy for customers against their business. The protect part of the portfolio helps protect the users, assets, and data. And here we are able to perform enforcement for zero trust as well as provide the right level of insight for zero trust. And this is possible through IBM's digital trust portfolio of solutions around IBM Security Verify, which provides identity and access management capability, Guardian, which provides data security capabilities, and Mass360, which provides unified endpoint management capabilities. We also saw that how easy it was to an integrated solution to be able to respond to any of those threats that were coming out, and the response was automated and orchestrated, right? And this is possible as part of IBM's Cloud Pak for Security Solutions and aided by QRadar SIEM solution, which is used for analytics. So in essence, IBM is very well positioned to help customers align their security strategy, protect their key users, assets, and data, help manage defenses against growing threats, as well as help customers modernize their security investments. So this is my last slide. So we do realize many customers are looking at zero trust and are maybe struggling to determine how they can get started with a zero trust approach within the organization. In this session, I presented what is IBM's point of view around it, and our point of view is for you to prioritize a certain business use cases and then adopt zero trust based on the principles that we have highlighted for those use cases. And once you've done that, you expand that to other use cases in the organization. What IBM is doing is we are offering customers a zero trust training and discovery workshop that essentially will give you and your stakeholders a strategic view of zero trust architecture. It will help you align the right stakeholders around the most impactful use cases or goals that you can identify. It will help you gain insights on your critical resources and how you can best apply the zero trust principles around it, and help you basically essentially identify the key initiatives that you can drive within the organization. So thanks a lot for attending this session, and I'm open to any questions that you guys may have.